Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Chit Chat with Cass. It's been a week, folks, so I'm just going to sit here and chill and sip my coffee and record this podcast. I had a very long work week, and I was supposed to get up a little bit earlier today to have this podcast recorded already, but I decided to sleep in, apparently, without my knowledge. So here we are, recording this podcast so that I can edit it and post it for you lovelies. So, today, I'm going to be chatting about a topic that I actually think about quite a bit because I am such a movie and TV lover. The idea of remakes, reboots, and sequels tend to come up a lot in my conversations about some of my favorites, or just new things that are coming out in theaters or coming to local TV shows, right? So essentially, I'm going to be talking about Hollywood and its lack of creativity or ideas the past few years, and how Hollywood has relied on the movie remakes, the TV show revivals, and the sequel series. So, are remakes good? It's really hard to beat out anything when it comes to remaking like fan favorite movies. So in turn, there are a lot of fails within the remake or reboot world. The Ghostbusters remake was one of the top disliked trailers on YouTube. Now, was it because they swapped out the male characters for females? Or was it fans not being into the idea of remaking one of their favorite movies? Now, that movie has a lot of hate. It is pretty widely disliked. And while I don't hate it as much as some people, the originals are some of my favorite movies. So when it was announced, I didn't feel like it was needed to do a remake, but I did go and see it, and I think I actually bought it. I don't hate it as much as some people, but I could understand the lack of interest because the two original Ghostbusters movies are literally some of my favorite movies to watch. I could watch them all the time. So I don't think it was necessary to remake it. Dirty Dancing is another fan favorite that was remade into a TV movie recently. Dear God, was it bad. I gave it a chance, guys. I did. I recorded it on my DVR. I sat down. I'm ready to watch it. And it just went on, and I couldn't, oh my gosh, my mind was not comprehending how bad it was. Because I sat and watched the entire thing. And then you know what else? Then I fast forwarded through it to show my dad the parts that were bad or that didn't make sense. So I technically kind of watched it twice. Why? Oh, it was so bad. Dirty Dancing is another favorite movie of mine, as it is for so many people. So many people love that movie. Jennifer Grey, Patrick Swayze. That movie is just so good. Why did we remake it? Why was it needed to remake it? Because the original is fine. Even today, the original is just fine. So why did we feel the need to remake it? You know, I feel like I tend to be a little, easy on movie or TV reviews, but that TV remake of Dirty Dancing, I will never watch it again, and I'm honestly trying to block it out of my memory. Speaking of Patrick Swayze, they also remade Point Break, but I've only seen the original one. I haven't seen the remakes to judge it. So, and they also remade Red Dawn. While the remake was okay, and I've actually seen the remake a couple different times, I thought they did okay with it. Nothing's gonna beat the original for me. So that's another thing where I don't hate the remade version, but the original movie is I have a lot of favorite movies, So, I mean, it's another favorite of mine. It's another one that I really enjoy. And so when you compare it to the remake, it doesn't quite match. It was okay, but it's not going to beat the original. And that's the case for a lot of these things. Either it's a complete fail, and they shouldn't have remade it to begin with, or they tried their best, and it's an okay movie or show, but it doesn't beat the original. I think they might be slowly but surely remaking every Patrick Swayze movie, because I think I actually heard that they might be remaking Roadhouse as well. So we're just going through all the Swayze movies, it seems. So then we have like the Disney recreating so many of their classic cartoon movies, right? A lot of us grew up with those cartoon movies, so we're very familiar with them. Now, does that count as a full remake with what Disney's doing? It's probably not exactly, because a lot of people say it's just reimagined with real people. Instead of just watching the cartoon, Disney is reimagining their classic tales into real life people. So that, I feel, is a little bit different, but it also is those storylines that we've seen over and over again. We're very familiar, so does that lack creativity? Like, Cinderella has been reworked about 1 billion times. We've seen about 1 billion Cinderella movies. Same with Snow White. There's been a few different, like, Snow White movies. We got a different look at Sleeping Beauty in the Maleficent movie, so I do appreciate that kind of creative twist, taking the classic Sleeping Beauty, but like focusing more on Maleficent. I did appreciate that. Soon we will be getting the Lion King remake, and it's supposed to be made similar to how they remade Jungle Book, a Mulan movie, which I am personally looking forward to. She's like one of my favorite Disney princesses, but she got bumped when Leia became Disney. Sorry. So, do these count as lack of creativity or just reimagined with the real people? It's kind of debated, can be debated. Everybody's opinion is going to be different. If they think that Disney is trying something new by putting real people into these storylines, or if they think it's the same old fairy tale that we've seen 1 million times. I think Cinderella is probably one of the ones that's been remade the most. Like offhand, I can think of Ever After, which is probably my favorite Cinderella movie. I saw the one with Brandy. They even did like a newer Cinderella movie remake, whatever, but I haven't actually seen that one. I also haven't seen Jungle Book. There's a couple that I haven't caught up on because, you know, I'm like, oh, I saw the cartoon. I don't really have to see the new one right this second. I would like to see the new Lion King or Mulan, but I do need to see those trailers first. But I did really enjoy both of those cartoons when I was growing up, so I would like to see how they adapt them with real people or with the special effects that they're going to be doing for Lion King. They are also remaking or reimagining an Aladdin movie, so that one might be interesting. And then, of course, we had the Beauty and the Beast one with Emma Watson, which I did enjoy. Once again, it's like the same storyline that we have seen a lot with Beauty and the Beast, but it was a good job at bringing like real people into it and things of that nature. So honestly, some people I know would consider this not creative, while others would enjoy a new look at the classic tales. A lot of these debates really depend on who you're talking to or what type of movie fan they are and what they look for in a film. Do they want to be completely surprised by a movie? Then remaking a classic Disney movie might not be for them because you pretty much know what's going to happen, right? You know, Cinderella, spoiler alert, she loses the slipper. You know what I mean? Or, you know, like Beauty and the Beast, spoiler alert, she has to stay at the Beast Castle. You know, things like that they can't really change that much for a reimagined movie. But at the same time, it's the same story over and over. So I personally go back and forth with like the Disney ones, for example, where, you know, I do want to see them. I am a Disney fan. I grew up with Disney movies and things like that. And I'm curious to see how they reimagine these movies. But at the same time, some of them haven't caught my interest, so I haven't even seen them. I guess it depends on which story, which fairy tale they're going for, which character. Like I said, Mulan is one of my favorites, so I will be seeing that movie. But unless they drastically change the whole storyline, I know exactly how that movie is going to go, so I won't be surprised at all. Let's see. Charlie's Angels is another one that was, of course, remade into a movie from the original TV show. But it actually looks as if they're wanting to remake Charlie's Angels again. And I'm hearing names like Lupita Nyong'o and Kristen Stewart for potential people in this Charlie's Angels remake. Well, Charlie's Angels can easily be remade because, you know, you can just switch up the angels. But is it really time for a remake? The ones with like Drew Barrymore and Lucy Liu were not that long ago. So why the need to remake it so soon? Is this one of those instances where Hollywood is just out of ideas? They have no idea what to make anymore. So let's make an action TV show or movie that's based around these Charlie's Angels. It seems to be popular before, let's do it again. Like, for me, this is honestly one of those times where I feel like they are just running out of ideas, because those movies with Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu, they were not that long ago. So it just really blows my mind that it's time to make new ones already. So then you have the more like sequel type movies or remakes of the original with new ideas, essentially. So, like, for example, movies like the new Jumanji or Blade Runner. So they did this. They referenced the original content, but kind of made it into a sequel with new ideas. So it's like kind of like a remake sequel feel, if that makes any sense. Neither of which have I seen, but I know the basic gist of both of those movies. But they are good examples of like doing something new, but still referencing the original material as sort of a sequel series. I do personally prefer like a sequel type connection to movies instead of just the standard reboot where they just do everything over. They've also done this kind of thing with Jurassic Park. The new ones are like new Jurassic Park movies, but they're still connected to the original films. I also know that they are making a Mary Poppins movie, and while it was first released that this was going to be a complete remake, reboot, it's actually not. It's more of a sequel, because Mary Poppins is supposed to be coming back to help the children that she did in the first movie, but they're grown up now and have their own kids, so it's more of a sequel, if that makes any sense. I just prefer those type of ones where it has the connection to the original movie that we love, instead of just repeating the exact same thing over and over again. I think it's a little bit more creative when they try the sequel aspect. Horror movies are the worst regarding this topic. Now, I'm not saying that these type of movies are bad movies. I love horror movies. I love thriller movies. I do pick them apart, but I love them. I could sit down and have a movie night with a bunch of horror movies. That just sounds like a fantastic time to me, right? But they do lack creativity. Now, there are some out there that are doing crazy, crazy, scary things that are new and fresh. But for the most part, I feel like horror movies, scary movies, lack creativity because of how many times storylines are repeated, remakes are made, things of that nature. There have been so many horror movies that have been remade. When a Stranger Calls, House of Wax, Black Christmas. The list goes on and on. While I enjoy these movies, I wonder if it's all because of the lack of creativity. The fresh new stories are almost unheard of these days. And when you get the few new stories, they're so popular because people are like, oh my God, we haven't seen this before. Yes, this movie is fantastic. Or, oh my gosh, I haven't been scared like that before because it's a new idea. It was the same kind of thing when they have been remaking the kind of originals. Not original, but when a lot of people think to horror movies, they think of Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, things like that. And they've remade all of those a couple times. And I don't think any of them were even close to being as good as the original ones. Except maybe Friday the 13th, because I'm not a huge Jason fan, but I tried to watch the original Friday the 13th. Whew, is a doozy. I don't really care for it. I can watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween all the time, but the Friday the 13th movies are kind of cheesy. So, as I said, I do prefer the sequel remake look at new movies instead of just the complete reboot. For me, I enjoy seeing the previous characters come back and reprising their roles, kind of like what they've done with Star Wars, you know what I mean? We had Harrison Ford back, Carrie Fisher back, Mark Hamill back, playing the characters that we saw them play in 77 today. So I do like seeing familiar characters back in a sequel series aspect. Like I said, Jurassic Park is doing that as well. Let's see, they even did that with the new Independence movie, where it was a fresh look at Independence Day, but it was familiar characters. We had several characters that were in the original Independence Day that came back for this sequel decades later. But of course, we have the issue of we've seen these storylines, so can they make it a fresh, new idea with familiar faces? TV shows are honestly not much different. Plenty of shows have been remade as well. Charmed, my precious Charmed that I loved so much growing up, is being remade. And I'm sorry, I tried to watch the trailer and it does not look good to me at all. I'm not interested in seeing it. This is another one where I'm like, has it really been long enough for a Charmed reboot? Has it really? I personally do not think so. I first started hearing about a new Charmed idea when American Horror Story Coven was on, because people were liking that season so much that they wanted to create more witch content. Well, make a new show. I can come up with a dozen TV show ideas that revolve around witches. Come on guys, be a little bit of creativity, right? It doesn't have to be a Charmed reboot. It hasn't been long enough for a Charmed remake. I would have much rather seen a show about the next generation, if you're a Charmed fan, their kids, like Wyatt and Chris and their cousins going and doing their thing, continuing the Hallowell line. I would have loved to see that. But a complete remake where it's a new set of Charmed ones and they're different, and people are debating if this show will somehow connect to the Hallowell sisters, because the new ones are not the Hallowell sisters, they're something else. So perhaps the destiny moved on to somebody else. That's what I'm kind of thinking. But I'm just not feeling it. A lot of people aren't feeling it, so I'll be very curious to see how that show does, because a lot of people feel the same way that I do. It hasn't been long enough to remake such a fan favorite show like Charmed. Let's see, some other TV shows. Lethal Weapon was actually turned from a movie into a TV show. And I've seen a little bit of that TV show, not a lot. I've seen the Lethal Weapon movies a bunch. Those are great action movies. Hawaii Five-0 was remade. So was SWAT. Full House got a sequel series on Netflix. So that's, again, bringing back those familiar faces, which I prefer instead of just a reboot. I also hear that Murphy Brown is coming back with the original cast. Roseanne even came back for a revival series, but that all got shot to shit because she's kind of an idiot. So that show's canceled. Although I'm hearing that they might try to do a spin-off focused on Darlene and her kids. I have no idea. That whole situation hurts my head. They also remade things like Dynasty, Melrose Place, 90210. Although that one was more of a sequel series because it included familiar characters in the new 90210. Let's see. There was even a Dallas remake/sequel series. Gilmore Girls did a show on Netflix that was, the same cast back. Will and Grace came back as well. The list really goes on and on. Shows that have been coming back either as complete remakes or more of a sequel series or revival. Even Disney Channel has been doing it. Boy Meets World came back as Girl Meets World, focused on Corey and Topanga's daughter. And they also did that with That's So Raven, focused on her kids. So I could honestly continue to list remakes or new sequels on and on, because there are so many. Hollywood is constantly, putting out content we are very familiar with. But are they good? That's the real question, right? If they put out something that is entertaining and that catches a lot of fans, then, good on them. But like I said, does the remake or sequel ever really capture what the original did? That's really the question here, isn't it? The debate. It's a fact that they repeat material a lot. But do you enjoy it enough to watch a new version? Or stick to the original? Should Hollywood continue to remake these movies for a new generation? Or should they just watch the original movie or TV show? Some movies are remade and are totally different. Dawn of the Dead. That's a good example. It's a great remake. It's a really good movie. But it's actually very different from the original film. But then you have remakes like Psycho. That movie was made exactly like the original. And when I say exactly, I mean scene for scene, shot for shot. I know that was their intention, but why don't you just go watch the original then? It's Alfred Hitchcock. Go watch Alfred Hitchcock. I go back and forth. Do I want changes made to a remake? Or do I want it the same, especially if it's one of my favorite films? Do I want them to suddenly switch something up and I'm surprised? Or will I be well, why did they change that? In the original, they did this. I go back and forth. But I do enjoy some of these new sequel remakes or remakes in general. Like, I do enjoy them. I'm not hating on every single remake that's ever been made because I enjoy a lot of them. But I also enjoy the originals. It goes this way, that way, it bounces back and forth for what I like. And I think that's the case for everybody. You can't just say, oh, I only like the originals, oh, I only like the remakes, because there has been good ones on both sides. A lot of the times the remakes kind of go to the fail side, but could try and have an open mind. So yes, I do not hate them all, but it is just highly doubtful that they're going to beat the original for me in most cases. So clearly my mind is a little bit all over the place with this topic. A little bit. I'm actually looking over a list here of better or worse movies compared to the original. People have kind of voted on these different films or shows, listing which was better. Was the remake better or was the original better? And I thought that I would just share some with you. King Kong is on this as worse compared to the original, and I probably agree with that. I wasn't a huge fan of the one with Naomi Watts, just wasn't into it. And since then even, they've done another King Kong one. Just gotta keep repeating those storylines in Hollywood. The Mummy is on this list as well, and I haven't seen the new one, but I'm a huge fan of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. Right. But the new one is, of course, leading into the monster movie remakes, guys. They are actually going to be remaking, like, all of those classic movie monsters. Okay, Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Werewolf, those type of things. They're going to be remaking. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm very curious, but the originals are like so good, so classic Hollywood, black and white. Like, Bride of Frankenstein is one of my favorite visually pleasing movies. It's gorgeous. The lighting is beautiful, like the way they film it is beautiful. Like, new directors should really take point on some of the classic Hollywood stuff. Because not only is it just like visually nice, they don't rely on computers to tell them things, but it's just so pretty. I say this all the time that when new directors or new movies like make something black and white, it looks like they filmed it just regular and then they put a black and white filter over it. When you compare it to classic Hollywood, the lighting is like set for it to be black and white, and the actors and the actresses look gorgeous because it's so set up so perfectly with the lighting for the black and white footage. But today, they don't really do anything special, they just stick a filter over it. So I'm not sure how I feel about this movie monsters remake thing. I am a fan of the originals. I haven't even seen the new Mummy one yet. I will at some point because I want to see how they take these monster movies and how they connect them all and things like that. But I don't think they're gonna beat the originals for me. Just gonna put that out now. Okay, back to that list. We also have some movies on the list that are listed as better than the original. So let's see here. Freaky Friday is listed as better, and I think I agree with that. I actually like the remake more than the original. I think that's a fair statement for me. For worse, we have Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton one, and I can understand that a lot of people do not care for that movie, especially like the hardcore ape fans. I'm not like a really big Planet of the Apes fan, but I have seen several movies, things like that, and the Tim Burton one is interesting, even though I'm a Tim Burton fan. It doesn't really feel like a Tim Burton movie. That's what's weird for me. Psycho is on here, as I've already mentioned, for worse. You can't really beat Alfred Hitchcock. Although, speaking of him, Rear Window is a movie of his. It's fantastic if you have not seen it. And Disturbia, with Shia LaBeouf, is basically a remake of Rear Window, with just slight differences. And I love that movie as well. So in some cases, I do love the original and the remake as well. Both of them are fantastic for different reasons. So I guess you have to do it right to be able to capture someone's love for both movies. For another worse movie, we have Halloween, the Rob Zombie one, guys, listed on here. Sorry, I am not a Rob Zombie fan, and I agree with this one completely. The original Halloween is way better than the craziness that he put into those two movies. I don't get it. We also have Stepford Wives on this list as a good remake. I enjoy that movie, but I haven't seen the original to compare it to. Godzilla is on this list as well. It's saying that it's better than the original, but once again, I have not seen it to compare. Dawn of the Dead is mentioned, and I completely agree that it's a fantastic remake. There's one on here that I didn't really know was a remake, really. The Adam Sandler movie Mr. Deeds is apparently a remake, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the original because I didn't know it existed. I also did not realize that the 1982 movie The Thing was a remake of a 1951 movie. I guess I'm completely out of the loop. I learned something new, guys. Alright, there's so many on this list, guys. I'm just kind of like looking through. I'm just kind of hopping about. There's literally like so many. 21 Jump Street, Hills Have Eyes, Ocean's 11, Hairspray, Man on Fire, Battlestar Galactica, Flatliners. The list goes on and on. Oh, you know another one that I just thought of that they're remaking that's actually probably, if it's not in theaters, it's going to be in theaters soon, is Overboard. Originally it was a Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell movie, which is hilarious, and they're remaking that, but they switched the roles. I will say that they had one job when remaking that movie. They should have casted Kate Hudson in it, because that makes sense to my mind. She's Goldie Hawn's daughter. She should have been casted in that, but whatever. So, as always, I love to hear your guys' opinion on this stuff. Do you think that Hollywood remakes things like way too often? Or have they essentially lost their creativity? Do they need fresh ideas, new people, perhaps, to explore those new ideas? I say new ideas couldn't hurt, even though I like some of the remakes or some of the sequel series, where we get like the familiar characters, as I said. I like way more original movies or show ideas. I'd like to see new ideas and be surprised by a movie instead of the same thing over and over and over. So, do you personally enjoy remakes or originals? Do you have a favorite remake or a favorite sequel? Or do you feel like there's an original that will never be beat by any sort of reboot? As always, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Chit Chat with Cass. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm going to finish my coffee now. Thanks for listening, lovelies, and I will catch you in the next episode.